Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah McManus. Some people like to call me Mrs. Herbert West, and this is my final project for my Theories of Personality class, where I'm going to take a deep dive into the personality of Dr. Herbert West from the Reanimator movies and the novelization. So the first thing I'm going to do is give a little synopsis of the novelization and each movie before proceeding on to diving deep into his personality. So with the novelization of Reanimator, in the first movie, Reanimator. This is a movie about Herbert West, a medical student at Miskatonic University, working in regenerative experiments using his reagent serum, right here. With the help of his roommate, Dan Kane, can he perfect his serum and bring the dead back to life, and all the crazy antics that go along with this. The next movie is Bride of Reanimator. And this movie again follows Herbert West and Dan Kane, now doctors at Miskatonic Hospital. They decide to actually build a person using various body parts of dead people that come through the hospital using their reagent serum again. This time they've been improving the serum by using iguana amniotic fluid. The last movie is Beyond Reanimator. And this one actually picks up where Bride of Reanimator has left off. Herbert West is actually getting arrested for what has happened in that movie. And now it's 13 years later. He's been in jail for the past 13 years. And now, with the help of the new prison doctor named Howie, who actually witnessed his arrest when he was a child, they are now creating the reagent again, this time using NPE to enhance it. And they decide to test on some of the other prisoners within the jail. And again, all the crazy antics that go along with it. So the first thing I'm going to go over is the 5-factor model, the Costa McCrae model. And this is extroversion, openness to experience, neuroticism, agreeableness, and conscientiousness. So first one we got is extroversion. Reflects the tendency and intensity to which someone seeks interaction with their environment, particularly socially. On the low end, they prefer solitude, they're reserved, withdrawn, dislikes being the center of attention, and they're introverted. On the high end, they are outgoing, sociable, excitement seeking, enjoy being the center of attention, and they voice their own opinion. I did score Herbert low on this. He is reserved, prefers solitude, and is withdrawn and introverted. However, he does voice his own opinion. So an example for voicing his opinion comes from the Reanimator novelization and the first movie. During Dr. Hill's class on the brain, learning about brain death, Herbert does not agree with Dr. Hill's teaching methods or beliefs, and he actually has no problem voicing his opinion to his actual teacher. Herbert, isn't it bad enough you left Switzerland in disgrace? Must you compound your sins by standing up there and teaching such drivel? These people are here to learn, and you're closing their minds before they even have a chance. Dr. Hill, and what are you here for, Mr. West? Certainly not to learn. Herbert, there is nothing I can learn from you. In fact, you should have stolen more of Gruber's ideas. Then at least you'd have ideas. So here he has no problem voicing his opinion on his teacher, Professor or Dr. Carl Hill, without even thinking of the consequences he could have by voicing his opinion to his actual teacher. Another example would be withdrawn, introverted. And again, this is in all 3 movies and the novelization. Herbert prefers to be alone. He likes solitude. He likes to work in solitude. In the first movie and the novelization, we see him in the basement. We see him in the basement, and he likes to keep to his room. So it's like his room in his basement and working on his reagent there. Meg, who is Dan's girlfriend in the first movie, even mentions this to Dan, like, have you ever seen him? You know, he's always keeping to himself. So it's even noticed that he prefers solitude or, from other people. In Bride of Reanimator, again, we see him working alone, piecing body parts together, using the reagent to, make them come alive. And then he kind of tosses them in a crypt. But again, he's working alone in the basement by himself. He likes being, alone, solitude. He's very introverted in nature. And in Beyond Reanimator, he has a cell by himself. Like, he likes to keep to himself. He likes it this way. He doesn't want to share a cell with anyone. You don't even really see him interact with any other jail person or prisoner within the jail, except for just himself. And the only people he really interacts with is Dan Kane, and this is in Reanimator, Bride of Reanimator, and the novelization, and then the new prison Dr. Howie in Beyond Reanimator. But other than that, he prefers to be alone. Next, we're going to move on to openness to experience. Refers to one's willingness to try new things as well as engage in imaginative and intellectual activities. On the low end, prefers routine, practical, not imaginative, dislikes change, conventional. On the high end, we got imaginative, unconventional, creative, curious, and open to try new things. I scored Herbert West low on this. He prefers routine, dislikes change, is practical, and not imaginative. So an example for not imaginative would be, well, it's in all of them, in all three movies and the novelization, because Herbert's very science-based thinking. He's very logical, rational, realistic. There is no abstract way of thinking for him. It's science and facts, and that's the way it is. That's how his brain works. That's how he thinks. But a good example would be from Bride of Reanimator. He's arguing with Dan about this patient that they have. Dan, she's not an experiment. Herbert, she's terminal. Dan, she's a patient. Herbert, she could be of use to us. Dan, not us, you. I'm a doctor. Herbert, well, be a scientist. So even here, he's very, again, facts. The fact is she's terminal. In his mind, she's no longer a patient. There's no other way to think about this. There's no abstract way of thinking about this. These are the facts. This is how it is. And this is how Herbert's brain works throughout all movies and the novelization. Science, facts, these are the way it is. He's very science-based. There is no other way to think. He's not imaginative. There's no abstract way of thinking. As for routine, we see this in Reanimator, Bride of Reanimator, and the novelization mostly. He has a set routine. This is how he is. This is how he likes it. We do see a little bit of a routine in Beyond Reanimator, but it's not really his routine. It's the routine set up by the jail. So I don't kind of count that as his routine. But in Reanimator and the novelization, his routine is basically school, home, work on his reagent, repeat. School, home, work on his reagent, repeat. Bride of Reanimator, his routine is basically work, which is at the hospital. So it's hospital, home, work on his reagent, repeat. Hospital, home, work on his reagent, repeat. He very rarely strays from his routine. He likes it this way. He likes his routine. He prefers routine. This is the way he does things. The only time you see him ever stray from his routine is like in the climax of the film, which is the last 20 minutes, when things kind of go crazy and are out of his control. And he's kind of forced out of his routine. But other than that, Herbert has a routine and he likes it that way. Moving on to neuroticism. Describes the overall emotional stability of an individual through how they perceive the world. On the low end, they are confident, high self-esteem, resilient, rarely feels sad or depressed, doesn't worry much. On the high end, we got anxious, self-conscious, vulnerability, insecure, and low self-esteem. I marked Herbert West low. He doesn't worry much. He's very confident in himself. He's resilient and has high self-esteem. So an example of high self-esteem would be in Reanimator, both the movie and the novelization. Again, Herbert thinks very highly of himself, and it's very obvious in actually all three movies and the novelization that he thinks highly of himself. It's the way he talks to people. He talks down to them. It's the way he presents himself. He very much thinks highly of himself. He has very high self-esteem. And we see this when Herbert first comes to Miskatonic University and meets Dr. Carl Hill, his new teacher. The way he talks to Dr. Carl Hill shows just how much Herbert thinks highly of himself. Herbert, I know your work, Dr. Hill, quite well, in fact. Your theory on the location of the will in the brain is very interesting. It's interesting, Doctor, though derivative of Dr. Gruber's research in the early 70s. So derivative, in fact, that in Europe, it's actually considered plagiarism. So he thinks highly enough of himself with his high self-esteem that he can actually talk down to a teacher without any consequences. Moving on to an example for confidence. This is in, again, all three movies and novelization. This kind of goes along with his high self-esteem. Herbert is very confident in himself. Again, thinks very highly of himself. He can voice his opinion. He thinks highly of himself. So in Reanimator the novelization, again, it's the way he talks to Dr. Carl Hill during class this time. He's very confident that he can talk to a teacher in this way, in this kind of manner, and still do well in school, not fail, and not get kicked out. He's confident with himself that he can talk to a teacher that way, you know, and it's the one I gave the example where he said, "This is interesting. Can you teach such drivel?" No problem talking to a teacher like that. Also, in all three movies in the novelization, he's very confident that his reagent will work. He's very confident in his research. You know, in Reanimator and the novelization, the reagent will work. In Bride of Reanimator, he can build a person and bring them back to life using his reagent. And beyond Reanimator, by adding NPE, this will restore rational behavior in my subject that I reanimate. So not only is he confident within himself, he's confident in his work. Moving on to agreeableness. Refers to how people tend to treat relationships with others. On the low end, they are manipulative, demanding, insults, belittle others, suspicious, and critical. High end, they are friendly, cooperative, sympathetic, modesty, and helpful. I scored Herbert low on this. He is critical, manipulative, insults and belittles others, and is demanding. So an example of him being manipulative would be in Bride of Reanimator. He actually uses Meg's heart to keep Dan with him, to keep Dan to do what he wants Dan to do. And Meg being his Dan's girlfriend from the first movie and the novelization. So Dan tells Herbert he's moving out, and he gets mad because Herbert actually wants to like reanimate parts, not a person as a whole, and this causes an argument between them. Dan, I'm out. Herbert, I didn't see you rejecting my work when Meg was lying there dead. Where were your great ideals then? And right after he says that, he presents Dan Meg's heart and basically tells Dan, we can build a person using Meg's heart. We can bring Meg back. So by using Meg's heart, he manipulates Dan to not move out of him, not to move out, and to stay with him and work with him on his reagent. Meg's heart is his tool he uses to manipulate Dan into doing what he wants him to do. Sorry. He's also demanding, and we do see this in Reanimator. So Herbert's actually showing Dan how the reagent works on his dead cat Rufus, because Dan came downstairs, saw Herbert wrestling with the dead cat, and they kill the cat, and then Herbert's going to show him how this works. Dan, West, stop. Herbert, I'll show you, then you'll help me. Dan, no. Herbert, yes you will. That's why I brought this infernal beast back to life in the first place. So right there, he's very demanding of Dan, like, you will help me. Yes, you will. There is no argument with Herbert here. Herbert's demanding Dan, no, I'm going to show you this. Now you're going to help me. In all three movies, you see him doing this. Herbert's very much like demanding, and this is how it's going to be. Okay. Moving on to conscientiousness. Describes a person's ability to regulate their impulse control in order to engage in goal-directed behaviors. On the low end, they are impulsive, disorganized, careless, incompetent, and procrastinates. On the high end, they are hardworking, organized, achievement-striving, responsible, and thorough. I actually put Herbert West in the middle of this because he has both low qualities and high qualities. On the low side, he's impulsive and careless. On the high side, he is achievement-striving and hardworking. So for impulsive, this is in all three movies and the novelization. Every time he murders someone, every time he kills, it's impulsive. It's not premeditated at all. It's all in the moment. In Reanimator, both the book and movie, he impulsively kills Dr. Carl Hill. In Bride of Reanimator, he impulsively kills Detective Leslie. And in Beyond Reanimator, he impulsively kills Warden Brando. Each one threatened him in one way or another, so he impulsively kills them. Dr. Carl Hill wanted to steal his work, Detective Leslie wanted revenge on him, and Warden Brando wanted to keep West basically behind bars the rest of his life in solitary confinement. So he murders them impulsively. Again, they're not premeditated. He doesn't think about it ahead of time. He feels threatened by these people. He impulsively kills them. But on the high end, we got achievement striving. And again, this is in all three movies, the novelization. In each movie and the novelization, Herbert West is working on perfecting his reagent. That's his end goal, is to have this reagent work the way he wants it to. In Reanimator, both the movie and the novelization, He's working to see if the serum even works and can bring people back to the dead. Bride of Reanimator, he adds the amniotic fluid of this iguana to the reagent to see if this can perfect the reagent. In Beyond Reanimator, he adds NPE, nanoplasmic energy obtained from the brain of a mammal, to his reagent, again to see if this can perfect his reagent. With each movie, he's trying to improve his reagent to restore rational behavior in the person, not to make them run on instincts alone, not to be kind of, I guess, zombies in a way. He's trying to restore the person as a whole as they used to be. So that's the end goal in every single movie. And that's his end goal, as that's his achievement. Like that's what he's striving for, is to perfect his reagent to have it work the way he wants it to. So that's the end of the 5-factor model. The next thing I'm going to move into is Freud's structural model, which is the id, ego, and superego. And in short, id is instincts, ego is reality, superego is morality. So the id is the immediate gratification of all desires, wants, and needs. Ego operates based on the reality principle, which strives to satisfy the desires in a realistic, to satisfy the id's desires in a realistic and socially appropriate ways. Superego holds the holds the internalized moral standards and ideas that we acquire from our parents and society, our sense of right and wrong. So for the id, an example would be, so Herbert does have the id working in his brain. It is there working, on his personality. It's part of his personality. When Herbert's life is threatened, and actually more specifically his life's work is threatened, he impulsively kills the one threatening him. Reanimator, movie and novelization, it's Dr. Carl Hill. Dr. Carl Hill wants to take his research and claim it as his own. Bride of Reanimator, Detective Leslie wants to arrest him, get revenge on him for reanimating his wife, ending his work. And in Beyond Reanimator, Warden Brando finds Herbert's secret lab and wants to shut it down and keep him in jail the rest of his life, keeping him from his work. So when Herbert's life is threatened, and again, really it's his life's work is threatened, his id goes into, into the front mode, or, the front is in his, he's in id mode, I would say, and he impulsively kills these people, or instinctively kills these people who are threatening his life's work. So for the ego, I definitely say that Herbert has an ego. He has the ego working within his brain. Herbert lives in the real world and only thinks logically and realistically. The ego's job is to kind of keep the id living in the realistic world and keep the id in check. One thing Simply Psychology stated was about the ego was, something is good simply if it achieves the end of satisfying without causing harm to itself or the id. So with that thinking, I would say that Herbert's ego really goes into check when he kind of rationalizes the murders of Hill, Leslie, and Brando. Like his id drives him to kill, because his life's work is threatened, but his ego pulls him back and kind of rationalizes each kill. Dr. Carl Hill wanted to steal his work and blackmail him. Detective Leslie wanted to destroy his work as well as destroy Herbert. Warden Brando wanted to shut down his lab, ending his life's work. This is him rationalizing each kill, which is bringing him back into the real world. That, okay, I impulsively killed these people, instinctively killed these people, but there's a reason why I did it. I'm rationalizing it now. Superego, morality. I don't think Herbert has any sense of morality, has no moral values whatsoever. And we see this in all three movies and in the novelization. Again, I'm going to use the murders as a good example. He doesn't even hesitate to kill these people, doesn't even think about the consequences. And then on top of it, he reanimates them right after he kills them, using them as a test subject for his reagent. Like, doesn't even think that this could be morally wrong. Not even morally wrong to kill them in the first place, but morally wrong to reanimate them and use them as a test subject. Now they are his experiment. So I did say that the only sense of morality Herbert even has, if you can even call it that, is Dan. Dan seems to be his kind of moral compass. Dan kind of keeps Herbert in check and keeps him from kind of going crazy and over the edge. Like, I kind of feel like Herbert would kill more if not for Dan kind of there to pull him back. But that's not really Herbert having a sense of morality. That's Dan being his moral compass and trying to keep Herbert in check. Next thing I'm going to go over is the dispositional motives. motive dispositions begin to form a picture of the person's personality. Need for achievement, need for power, need for affiliation, need for intimacy. So, need for achievement, the need to overcome obstacles and attain goals. Herbert West has this need. For example, his whole goal in life is to perfect this reagent. Like I said, for achievement striving, that's his end goal. That's what the obstacle he needs to get over is that he has to perfect his reagent. He needs to be able to bring people back to life as they were. Basically, he wants to cheat death, live forever. He wants to graduate medical school, become a doctor, but he only wants to be a doctor to gain access to everything he needs to make his reagent and to have access to cadavers and dead people in order to reanimate them. So this is his whole end goal. This is his end, this is what he needs to do. He needs to make this reagent. He needs to perfect this reagent. He needs to cheat death. That's his end goal in life. And that's what he strives for to achieve, is perfecting his reagent. Need for power, the need to have influence over other people. I would definitely say Herbert has this. Herbert kind of has a God complex about him. He definitely, again, thinks very highly of himself, and he kind of thinks he's better than everyone and can play God. And a good example of this would be from Bride of Reanimator. He's talking to Francesca, who actually has seen the creation he has made, and she is not happy with it. Herbert: we created life. Francesca: you made her? Herbert: yes, dead pieces of this. With my hands, I created what no man's mind or woman's womb could even hope to achieve. Francesca: this is blasphemy. Herbert: blasphemy? Before what? God? A God repulsed by the mistake of humanity he created in his own image? I will not be shackled by the failures of your God. The only blasphemy is to wallow in insignificance. I have taken refuge of your God's failures, and I have triumphed. There is my creation. So there's an example. He has played God. He likes that kind of power. He has a God complex. Need for affiliation, the need to form and maintain relationships and to be with people. Herbert does not have this need at all. Herbert doesn't care to make friends or form connections or to be around people at all. Like, he's not interested in any kind of social setting whatsoever. He prefers solitude. The only friendship he has is really with Dan, and the only other connection he's ever made was with Hans Gruber. Dan being his friend from Reanimator movie novelization and The Bride of Reanimator. So that's one connection he has made. But other than that, and Hans Gruber, it is mentioned in the novelization that he saw Gruber as a father figure. But other than that, he's not a social person. He's not interested in making friends. He's not interested in being around people. He's not interested in being any kind of social setting whatsoever. Like, this is not Herbert. He's not interested in that. He prefers solitude. He prefers to be alone. And last is the need for intimacy, the need for close communication and sharing with someone else. Herbert does not have this need either. Herbert has no interest in creating any type of intimacy with anyone. He's all about the work. Creating a sense of closeness to one person takes away from the work. He has no need for that, nor does he have time for that. And a really good example, and I was really happy I found this and was able to watch it again, is Herbert is played by Jeffrey Combs in all three movies. So he created the character. He is in the character's head. Jeffrey Combs is Herbert West. And he was a guest on The Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs, and he's actually talking about Herbert and intimacy. So Jeffrey Combs said this about Herbert with intimacy. Herbert is like all about the work. It's nothing else but the work. And whatever speeds that up is what he's going to go for. There's a scene where Dan is kind of having his way with the Italian reporter, and I kind of voyeur on that. But it's not really, it's because I don't understand that kind of intimacy, and what a waste of time. There's a lot of work to be done here. Jeffrey Combs goes on to say, I think it's a kind of curiosity. That kind of intimacy doesn't make sense to me. And that pretty much sums up Herbert West about in his need for intimacy. Intimacy doesn't make sense for him. It doesn't make any sense to him. He does not have a need for it. So to conclude, Herbert West is a very complex character. On the one hand, he is manipulating, withdrawn, impulsive, has no sense of morality, and is actually capable of murder. On the other hand, he is achievement driven, confident, has high self esteem, can voice his opinion, and can kind of form connections with others, but they are very, very limited. So for myself, Herbert is neither a hero nor a villain. He isn't a protagonist or an antagonist. I always put him in the category as an anti-hero. His overall personality is very introverted in nature. You know, he's very withdrawn. He likes his routine. He prefers solitude. He's not interested in social settings. He's not interested in making friends. He's not interested in forming any kind of intimacy with anyone else. But he's also very selfish in nature. You know, Herbert comes first. Herbert's work, the reagent, comes first. It's kind of all about Herbert and what he wants, you know. Yet, if he does kind of care for you and the only way he knows how to care about someone, such as Dan and Gruber, he will try to save your life while trying to save his life's work. You know, I think those relationships started as a means to an end, but he did form the only kind of closeness he could, the only way he knew how with two people. But other than that, it's all about Herbert and Herbert's work. Those come first. They will always come first. So that's my deep dive into the personality of Dr. Herbert West. I hope you enjoyed hearing about him as much as I love the character. Thank you.